say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and let me tell you something. I have got something special for you at the beginning of the year. Yes, I do, because I am telling you right now, my guest, Rick Miller, is going to blow the doors off of your new year. Forget about setting goals, all right? Forget about setting the goals. Forget about resolutions. We're going to talk about being different. We're going to talk about being chief today. That's what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about what we might do or what we could do or what we should do. We're going to talk about being. And Rick Miller, who has been chief officers for companies like AT&T and Lucent Technologies, and has been written up and on TV all over, has been so gracious to honor us today on A New Direction to talk about this book that I'm holding up that you could see, the people who are live on Facebook. And thank you everybody who's joining us right now. Be Chief. It's a choice, not a title. And we can all be chiefs, so we're going to do that. But before we get there, let's do what we do every week. So first of all, Happy New Year, everybody. Let's talk about what we do every week, and that is check in with the four areas of your life. Look, I know and I believe personally that we are four-part people, right? We are physical people, mental people, we're emotional people, and we're spiritual people. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being awesome, right? Whatever that is in your world, where are you today in the physical realm? You know, are you doing all the things that you need to do? Are you getting a little exercise? Most people do. Everybody sets goals and resolutions, and they get a little bit of exercise going, and everybody thinks that, right? And then by February, you forgot why you even were going to the gym. Matter of fact, you forgot that you even have a reservation at the gym because you've forgotten until the bill shows up. And then generally, you get rid of the bill, too. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at today physically? Now, look, if you're a 4, that's okay. The object here is not to get to a 4 to a 10. I just want you to get to a 4 to a 5. All right, so what do you got to do right now to get yourself from a 4 to a 5 physically, if that's where you're at? All right, you got that? Okay, mentally, where are you at? And you ask me, well, what are you talking about mentally? Well, mentally, what I'm asking you is, what are you feeding your brain? Right? What kind of knowledge are you absorbing in your brain? What are you doing to exercise your brain? Listen, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can always be exercising your brain. Sure, your body can fall apart. You may not be able to do the things that you used to do, but your brain can always be active. One of the things I just read about recently is that whenever you take up a new instrument or a new language, you exercise both sides of your brain. It's a great way to challenge yourself. So what are you doing to feeding that mental side? And where are you on that scale of 1 to 10? All right, got it? Okay, so you've got your physical number, you've got your mental number. How about emotionally? And you say to me, emotionally, what do you mean? Well, what's your EQ, your emotional quotient? What's your emotional intelligence? How well are you able to control your own emotions? And not just control your own emotions, but how well are you able to relate to the emotions of others? Right, in that scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being fantastic. What's your number emotionally? Right? We just came through a holiday season, and we're about to see bills come in right now that could stress us out. How are you going to handle that? And all motion is about being intentional, folks. You know, it can be difficult. Listen, you could kick me in the shin, and it might be difficult, but I can still choose whatever emotional response I want to that. That's my choice. Right? So emotionally, where do you think you're at? And then what can you do to improve yourself emotionally? And then finally, the fourth area of your life, and that is the spiritual realm. And people always ask me, oh, Jay, the spiritual, I don't really believe in God and everything. Whoa, back up here. Hold on here. I didn't say you had to believe in God. I just said the spiritual realm. Because people get a sense of peace a lot of times from other things that we can't explain with science or facts. Some people get something out of nature that just hits them in a way that inspires them that they can't explain. There's a lot of things we can't explain in this world. But if it is God, so be it. How is that relationship going for you? What can you do to improve it? What can you do to make it better? All right? So you've got your 4 numbers, right? Your physical, your mental, emotional, and spiritual. You've got the 4 levels. Now, I want you to think of those 4 levels as like the legs of a table. How even are they? right? Because it's hard to eat off of an unlevel table. And then because we all want to be in balance. But the other question is, how low are they? Because if you're sitting in a normal chair and you're trying to bend over to eat something off a plate of a table that's really that low, it makes it really hard, doesn't it? So what do you got to do to challenge yourself to be better each and every day? This isn't a goal thing. This is a being thing. What do you need to be today to make yourself better? All right. Well, my next guest is about being, okay? And his name is Rick Miller. And I want to tell you something. Rick Miller is awesome. Rick Miller is, I guess we could call him an unconventional turnaround specialist. He loves to call himself a servant leader. And trust me, you'll hear it as he talks to you. And a go-to chief. He is also an experienced and trusted confidant, an author, sought-after speaker, and you know how I feel about my fellow speakers, folks, because I'm one who travels around the country and does the same thing. Hire him. If you're people who are watching this right now or listening to this on the podcast later, listen, if you're in the speaking, you need to hire him because you're going to love him when you hear him. He's also an expert of driving sustainable growth. For over 30 years, Rick served as a successful business executive in roles including president or CEO in a Fortune 10, a Fortune 30, a startup, a nonprofit. In each case, he was recruited from the outside to turn around poor performing companies in difficult times. Rick Miller is a chief, not because of his high-ranking titles, but because of his ability to bring out the best in others and in himself using the choices he developed in his power compass. We're going to get to talk about that. A road-tested sustainable growth model he created over the course of his successful career, and which he shares in his book and continues to share with his clients. Rick Miller, welcome to A New Direction, and everybody welcome Rick to A New Direction. Rick, welcome.
Hey, Jay, great to be with you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And Rick, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, think, man, we got a lot of people tuning in right now. Tim Williams, John Cox, the list goes on and on. I got people from all over the country tuning in. Paul Fitz, Donna Symes, and Judd Weisgold, thank you for all tuning in live. Thank you for doing this. It's fantastic. Rick is brought to you today, and I always feel like whenever I do this, like I feel like I should be doing the Sesame Street thing, brought to you by the number 7 or something like that. But he's brought to you today by Inline Business Brokers and Advisors, and they partner with business owners when it's time to sell their business. So when it's time to sell your business, but even if you want to buy one, they can help you too. Contact the professionals at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You can learn more at inline.com. That's www.enlign.com. Sorry about that. I had to start to cough when I started to do that. Rick, you have written this amazing book called Be Chief, and it's a choice, not a title. I'm holding it up for everybody to see. It's available on Amazon. It's available at your favorite bookstore. It's available hardback, softcover, Kindle, and Audible book as well. So if you can't find it, it's because you're not trying. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right now. If you cannot find this book that I'm holding up and showing you, you're not trying to find it. Rick, what do you mean when you say Be Chief?
Well, I basically mean, because you gave the subtitle, which is kind of the whole message, which is it being choice, not a title. It basically is my version, Jay, of being the best version of yourself. Chiefs, when I got out of business school, I really wanted to be a chief when I got out of business school. But back then it was about being a chief executive officer or a chief financial officer. Those were the only two people. That was back in the day when there were vice presidents and senior vice presidents and executive vice presidents. And we had the VP scale, if you will, up the ladder. But to get to the very top, it was about chiefs. And I wanted to be one. I wanted to have really the power that was associated with that term, chief. And back in the day, power was all about authority and control, and it came from position and people who had titles. But today, and the point I make in the book really is that power, I think, it's in need of a redefinition. And I think power today is about energy and clarity and confidence and influence and impact that you can have independent of your title. And the book is all about, how do you define power? How do you measure power? How can you increase your power and share it? And if you happen to have a position where you have a team of people, how can you help every member of your team become more powerful? That's what it's about.
I love that because, you also said something. First of all, the book is, and we talked about this off air, but the book made me cry. The book made me laugh. The book inspired me. It motivated me. Matter of fact, I consult some businesses, and I even took some advice from your book yesterday and applied it to a particular situation in one of the companies that I'm coaching and consulting for, and it just worked flawlessly of literally empowering somebody to become a chief. Because I think sometimes I felt like in this situation that perhaps the CEO was not empowering his people enough, and they needed to become chiefs. Do you find that happens? I mean, do you find that that's more common, that sometimes sometimes as a CEO we just don't want to empower, or we neglect to empower our people?
Well, the whole idea of CEOs empowering people, I kind of take a different view on that, because, as you know, having read the book, the book is written for somebody who it could be on the front line, right? So I don't believe, one of my favorite expressions is, power is never given. It's only taken. So if you're a CEO, you can do some things with compensation or recognition or good communication. You can do some things to help people feel the power that they had before they even showed up at work. Right? You're not giving them power. Sometimes you say empower them. I'm bequeathing to you power. I'm not a fan of that kind of language, because I think when people show up, they are powerful. A lot of companies and CEOs do some things with unintended consequences that kind of take that power away, right? If you don't communicate, if you're not paying at market base or something like that, you can do that. And there are certainly a lot of organizations that where people on the front lines look up and say, I don't necessarily agree with that decision, but I don't give people on the front line a pass, because they have the same choices to make to increase, as I said before, their energy and clarity and confidence and influence and impact, so they can be chief no matter who's on top of them on some org chart.
It's interesting, because I think, I think we're so used to, in the corporate world, we're so used to like giving people titles, that we're used to saying, okay, you're now a manager, right? You weren't before, but now you are. And we feel like that title comes with power, but your book points out over and over again that's not, just because the title doesn't necessarily make you powerful.
Well, and I think it's such a great point, Jay, you're bringing up, because there's no question, if I'm a manager, then I do have a certain degree of authority over the people that I'm responsible for, right? I mean, very few people on the front line can give themselves a pay raise, right? So you have to acknowledge that there are some things you don't control your own compensation plan. So I acknowledge that, but we get over fixated on that definition of power, as opposed to the power that I'm advocating, that truly can bring people an incredible amount of fulfillment wherever they sit. It is that choice. By the way, I want to go back to something that you said earlier, that you're one of the few people who have brought this up early in our conversation, and I want to point it out to your listeners, because it's so important. There are limitless books about leadership out there. I mean, virtually limitless. And you used a word that I want to go to, and the word that you used was, you applied it, right? You said already, you applied it. And that's so powerful, because there's great books out there. I've got a lot of friends who write a lot of books, and my experience with leadership books, and I've read a ton of them too, is they do a great job in the supply of leadership information. So think about the word supply. You can go to a lot of places and get a supply of leadership information. What my book does is it helps you apply it. So there's supply books and there's apply books.
Right.
What I really tried to get to as a practitioner is, how do I give people like you, Jay, who are out there every day making things happen, a tool that allow you to actually put it into practice, rather than come away with lists of things that an academician or a researcher or someone who hasn't been on the front lines might offer with the best of intentions. But there's something about having been on the front lines with the smell of gunpowder in your nose. It gives you a different perspective of what it really takes to make things happen. And you consult, you coach, that kind of, and the fact that you're already able to apply it puts a big smile on my face. So thanks for sharing that.
You're very welcome. And we're talking with Rick Miller, author of the book, Be Chief. By the way, I don't know how many people are joining us right now, but I've got so many. I can't thank you all. They're just coming out of the woodwork, because we're doing this live on Facebook. and as well. And I'm doing something new because I'm doing it from my personal page rather from my business page. And you people are all over there. Canada, represented well by Shirley Porter, middle managers like Thomas Cantley, owners, Murray Wall, Joel Fitz, Demai Fitz. Thank you for listening. They're just chiming in like crazy. So there's people who are going to listen to this on a podcast are wondering what's going on. Well, it's just because people are really tuning into the show all over the place, North America wide and even worldwide. The book is called Be Chief. His name is Rick Miller, and we are talking to him about this book, and he's brought to you today by our good friends at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You know what? They've helped literally thousands. Inline has literally helped thousands of clients in the sale, purchase, and purchases of businesses. When it's time to sell your business, contact the professionals at Inline for us, please. The Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You can learn more online at inline.com. That's www.enlign.com. Jeff Snell, the owner and COO, is absolutely, first of all, he's a friend of the show. He has been on the show, and he supports the show, and he's responsible for it. So contact the folks, literally, at enline.com. Tell Jeff, tell his people that you heard it on A New Direction, and that Rick Miller was the guest. And I'm telling you, they will take care of you and take care of your business as well. And so we are very grateful for them doing that. So, Rick, I want to go to where the heart of this book is. And that is the compass, right? And you know, we talk about compasses as giving us some sort of a direction, but your compass does that exact same thing, but it's a little different. Walk us through it.
Well, again, if success is connecting what you do to who you are, because we're all unique individuals, then I am a strong advocate and have used this tool in companies ranging from startups to multinationals to help people in these organizations, kind of bring their A game every day. But everybody's different, right? I mean, rather than legislate, here are the 10 things we're all going to do, my advocacy is you go a little bit deeper into both who you are first and then what you do second. So the compass has 5 parts. It asks questions that everyone can answer to their own satisfaction. I'm not offering a score that says you must answer this question this way. I think the power of the compass is it's customized to the strengths of every individual. So we start at a place called insight. And the question is, how well do you know yourself, right? And I believe that insight is the key to energy, the energy that really, it's not an extra cup of coffee, it's not Mountain Dew, it's not 5-hour energy. It's the kind of energy that's sustained because it comes from the inside. Right. And we ask questions of people as they build their compass. How comfortable are you being present? How comfortable are you being accepting and being generous and being grateful? And can you actually be still in this crazy world that we're part of, where everyone's chirping at you all the time, whether it's a well-intentioned spouse or a family member or the media, which is always telling you what you should do? Can you find time to actually still your mind and learn to listen to the most valuable voice that you'll ever hear, which is your own? You talked about the four parts of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and I agree with you 100%. Love that analogy, by the way, at the table. And the element of insight gets to this element of your own spirituality, in that you really do listen to a voice that is inside you, and that is at the heart of the compass. From that heart, actually, we ask people to select their values. What do you stand for? And the advocacy I make is that once you determine what you stand for, you can take a stand. And when you take a stand, you become powerful. So that's one part of the compass. It's like, who are you? Have you spent the time to figure out, how do I want to increase my energy and my confidence by knowing and increasing my insight and my values? Then when you make steps about what you're going to do with discipline and support, discipline that gives you clarity. I mean, discipline, all it does, Jay, is it increases the probability of your success, right? I'm not going to tell anybody what they need to do, but I'm going to ask people, how comfortable are you with your strategy? How comfortable are you as you go through your day? Are you planning the work and working the plan? And maybe you are and maybe you aren't. We're all different. Some people are highly regimented, some people less so. I'm not advocating one position on that spectrum. I'm just suggesting that you actually make a conscious choice. I also advocate that you think about influence in terms of how many people you support and how you can support them. How can you enable others to be successful and encourage them? And so connecting this, what you do to who you are, allows you to be incredibly creative. And in the compass, I asked questions. I said, are you in touch with how you feel, how you think? Because I think that's internal creativity. And then outside, how do you speak and how do you write and how do you act? And if you align all those creative choices, Jay, you can be incredibly powerful. And again, aligning what you do to who you are. And by the way, just to share with your audience up front, I want to sell a lot of books, right? Because all proceeds are going to help special needs kids. Right. But this compass is free, and it's online at beingchief.com. Yep. And anybody can go on at any hour of the day or night, take a quick 4 or 5 minute survey, and actually rate their power in each of these areas, and then make some choices about how they want to go forward. Certainly the book gives you a way to apply it in meaningful ways. But this is such a powerful tool. I didn't want to limit it to the book. It's free to all your listeners, and I encourage them to take the 4 or 5 minutes, because particularly at the new year, it will help them set their own direction.
Oh, wow, that's very good. Well played there, sir. It's called beingchief.com, beingchief.com. You can go there, by the way, and you can start putting your own compass together. And what I found so brilliant about the compass is, when I got to the end of the book, and you have this kind of separate section where you can start putting your values together, and you actually, instead of making me kind of come up with, okay, well, what do I really value? You actually give me some ideas to start thinking about, which, by the way, as a psychological professional, I am so grateful that you gave us at least some ideas to think through. I'm not saying it was an exhaustive list, but man, it really triggered some things in me. Yeah. When I was reading through the list of, okay, what, and by the way, folks, you may think that you know what you value. I am telling you, I don't care what your age is. I don't care if you're 5 years old listening to me, God bless you. If you're 505 years old listening to me, God bless you too. I don't care what age you are. You need to reassess, I believe, periodically your values. And in Rick's book, and this is why I loved one of the reasons I love this book, is because I wanted to make sure that when I look at myself internally and deeply, because Rick really gets you to do this in this book, am I authentically living out the values that I truly believe? Or am I saying values but living a different set of values? And now my integrity, as Rick points out in his I3K, now my integrity is in question because I'm not being authentic to what I'm living. And then, as Rick points out in his book, and I'm stealing his book and I shouldn't, but I am going to anyway, wherever I go work, I'm no longer in alignment because my values are not aligned with my own authenticity. And that becomes powerful. And Rick, I want to ask you, I didn't mean to steal all that from you, but this is where your book really spoke to my heart and my soul and my spirit and every part of me, is because alignment was such an important part of your career. Every time you went somewhere, whether it was Unisys, AT&T, Lucent, or it was a .com company, the first thing that it seemed that I read from your book was it aligned with my values.
It's true. It's true. I mean, that to me, Jay, was Jacks or better to open in the card game, right? That's what it needed to be, and particularly with AT&T, they very early on. I mean, this every company has a purpose now, and this is something that's come around relatively recently. But I can tell you that at AT&T, they call it their common bond, and the elements of what AT&T stands for has been consistent for almost 100 years. I work closely with a bunch of companies. J&J has the credo, There are companies that are just rock solid in their values. And to me, it was really important and has always been really important to do that. I'm currently working at a wonderful company now. I'm a member of their board, eXp Realty. And when I got there, the CEO, Glenn Sanford, has done a wonderful job, one of the fastest growing companies in the country, but had not yet articulated in a formal way the values that everybody talked about. So we formalized them. I mean, it's so critical that you understand that you're out there very clearly letting people know what you stand for. Because as I say, once you know what you stand for, you can take a stand. Remember, this is all about power. And the power you feel when you take a values-based stance, it's incredible.
We don't understand. I was talking a few weeks ago to Breton Putter. He authored the book breaking down the culture and culture decks, and in terms of different companies like Netflix and Hootsuite and Nordstrom's, and how they put their culture out on a SlideShare for everybody to see how they do it. And he was breaking down, and it's amazing to me that, first of all, so few companies, I believe, put down their values for everybody to see. Because I don't know how, if you don't do that, how do you create a culture?
Yeah, I would tell you, Jay, I might disagree with you a little bit there on that, respectfully. I would tell you, in my experience, if you dig, they're somewhere, right? They're on a wall in the boardroom, but nowhere else. Mm-hmm. They're handed out annually with wallet inserts, but they're never discussed during the year. The organizations that I'm drawn to not only have put those, pick a number, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 values down, but they've made them part of the daily operation of the organization, right? That's the thing that's different. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will, listen, a lot of them, I've worked for many, many companies, either as a consultant, as a confidant, as a coach, full-time, whatever. And you'll see, if you dig, you'll see organizations, respect for the individual and integrity and teamwork and focus on the customer. I mean, you could probably take 20 values and some subset of them show up all over. But what differentiates companies these days are the ones that live, eat, sleep, breathe, and dream them, right? No. That's the vibrancy that separates companies.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that. And I may have stated this in wrong, because we're in total agreement with that. I think the difference about those companies was they were living those out. You're going to have a culture. Listen, there's going to be a culture whether you put it on paper or not. You're going to create some sort of culture. It may be crazy. You could say there's a lot of companies that say a lot of things and it never matches up to what they say.
We're in alignment.
Yeah, with that, but the cultures that he was talking about were the ones who lived out that culture, and they not only lived it out, their employees were able to explain it.
Exactly. Hey, can I offer something to your listeners?
Sure.
I want to offer one of the most powerful exercises that I use, because organizations have values, but let's talk about each individual listener of those of the wonderful group that are tuning in and those that will in the podcast. Here's the exercise. Get 10 people that know you best and ask them this question. What 4 values do you think I stand for? Ask them independently and put them together. Now, you can do the math. It's possible, Jay, that you might get 40 different answers, right? By the way, they could all be very positive things, but you might have 10 people who know you best give you 40 different attributes of what they think you stand for. And since being chief is all about power, the most powerful form of energy that I can think of is a laser, right? And a laser is powerful because it's concentrated. So I would ask anybody who did this exercise, if you came back with, pick a number, more than 20, how powerful are you being if the 10 people who know you best would come up with 40 different attributes to describe what you stand for? And then how different would it be 90 days later if you went through this exercise and said, you know what, I really want to focus on 4. They look at the list that you saw in the book, and it's free, by the way, in a lot of different places. And they picked 4. And then after 90 days of being mindful about what they say, what they write, what they speak, and how they act, what would happen if 90 days later they went back to that same group of 10 people and said, hey, I asked you a question 3 months ago. I've been working on some things. Would you answer the question any differently? Mm. And how powerful would you be if you asked those 10 people and you got back, pick a number, 8 answers. And some said kindness and some said empathy, which are basically kissing cousins. Mm. And so I love the exercise, Jay, because it's actionable by your listeners, right? It's like, how do I know what I stand for? And then how can I be sure that the people who know me best would say, you know what, when I think of Jay, he stands for these things. I think that could make all of us incredibly powerful. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. I just wrote it out on the Facebook page. I said, get 10 people that know you best and ask them individually, what values do you stand for? And I just printed it out so that people who are listening online who couldn't write it down, they could pick it up right there from the live feed. Yeah. And I started thinking about that. And you know, what's crazy is that you start thinking about, well, what do people think about you? You know, I mean, you think, I think we believe that we're portraying something because we believe that we perceive ourselves in a particular way. Yeah. But the reality is, how do others perceive us? And I think we even get that wrong. And we have to be willing to listen to truth, because truth is an important part of your book, by the way.
It is. But I always listen to this. I always go to the same analogy, right? Remember, when you and I are speaking, we don't actually hear our own voices the way other people hear our voices. You'll hear your voice on a recording and you'll think, wow, that doesn't sound like what I'm listening to in my head. It's such a great analogy for the fact that we can have the best of intentions, right, as we try to stand. We're talking about the 4 things that we've decided we stand for most firmly. These are our most strongly held beliefs. And so all I always say in the book is that you can make choices in terms of your language. You can make choices in your actions. You can make choices in how you think and what you write that can have a real impact on those around you. Because if these are the 4 things that matter to Jay most, we're talking about the 10 people that know you best. Right. Wouldn't you want to have reflected back to you? And it's not, what do they think of Jay? It's like, what are you putting out there? Right. So they have no choice. When I think of Jay, I think of kindness. When I think of Jay, I think of children. I think, Jay, look at the work you've done supporting autism with Wild on Wysong, with the work that you've done in the Community Foundation and Children's Flight of Hope, back DJ days. Mm-hmm. I mean, you are all about kids, right? So people would say, I know Jay, and he's about giving back, and particularly children or disadvantaged. But you can have a lot to say about how people, the energy that you're putting out there. And I just think it's a wonderful set of choices.
I love that. And then, and by the way, thank you for looking at my LinkedIn profile, because you just reminded me I needed to update it. So I appreciate you doing that as well. We're talking with Rick Miller, author of this phenomenal, amazing, incredible book called Be Chief. Folks, I read about a book a week, and because I do these interviews with these amazing authors, and I go, there's no way that the next book I'm going to read can possibly be any better. And I'm going to say it again about this book. There's no way that anybody's going to beat this book, because this book is just absolutely, it's a practical guide to you being better than you are right now. That's the simplest way I can put it. And the power lies within you. And listen, every dollar of the author's proceeds, every dollar, I'm not making this up. Ask Rick, he will tell you himself. Literally every single dollar goes to kids, right? And specifically kids with disabilities, right?
Yep, special needs kids.
Special needs kids. And so every dollar, right? So this is a great book that is giving back, which is pretty awesome. And not only does Rick do that here, but if you go to beingchief.com, that's Rick's website, beingchief.com, you can start putting your own compass together and your own values. And if you buy the book, and I really highly recommend that you do, and don't just buy it for yourself and be selfish. You should be buying this for your team. You should be buying this for a friend. By the way, if you think it's all about business, think again. This is a personal journey right? When Rick takes you into Baghdad and they throw a Kevlar jacket around his body and they plop a helmet on top of his head and they put him inside of armored vehicles surrounded by a whole bunch of heavily armed Kevlar, overly weaponized human beings around him. Trust me, the stories become not only, they come right off the page and they're personal, they're practical, they're applicable, and they will affect you in a positive way. And I promise you that as well. And you can get the book on Amazon. You can find it in any version that you like, whether if you're an Audible version, you can find it Audible. If you are a Kindle person, you can find it Kindle. If you like paperbacks, it's available paperback. If you like the hardcover, it's available hardcover. Find it at your favorite bookstore. If they don't have it on the shelf, tell them, I need you to get me Be Chief by Rick Miller, and I need you to get it now. That's what you need to do. And Rick is brought to us by our sponsor today, and that's Inline Business and Brokers. And Inline Business Brokers and Advisors represent profitable privately held companies with gross annual revenues in excess of $1 million. Inline delivers the highest market value in the shortest amount of time with, and most importantly, complete confidentiality. That is their trademark. So learn more about Inline Business Brokers and Advisors at inline.com. That's www.enlign.com. Tell Jeff Snell and his group of fine folks over there at Inline Business Brokers that you heard him on A New Direction. And again, we're talking with Rick Miller, author of this amazing, outstanding book called Be Chief. It's a choice, not a title. Rick, one of the things that I noted about this book and that kind of got to me was that the way you kind of did this book. First of all, you kind of outlined, creating my compass and putting together, my values and my insights. But then throughout the book, you give us these like other things, like I3K,
yep.
Right? Which I loved the whole idea of I3K because I3K is something, and I'm doing this purposely to people who are listening and who are watching me, who are going, "Come on,
you're mean.
What are you doing? What do you mean I3K?" Because I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let him talk. I'm not going to let him do it. But the whole idea of I3K and carrying that with me in every situation that I go is such a nice little pocket tool. So why don't you tell everybody about I3K and how they can use that?
Well, one of the labels that I carry is a turnaround specialist. So regularly I walk into organizations that are pretty bad. When I'm brought into an organization, either the stock is way down or the revenue is way down or the profits are way down or morale is way down or generally all four are way down. And so people are always wondering when an outsider comes in, what is important to the outsider? What makes him or her tick? And I am very consistent, whether it's any size company, a nonprofit. I said, what I'm looking for are surrounding myself with people. People want to know who's going to get promoted, who's going to get demoted, who's going to get fired. And I said, guys, the answer is always I look for people with I3K. Intelligence, intensity, integrity, and kindness. I said, that's always the answer. So people, in a startup, I go into a startup and a bunch of millennials are running around saying, oh, an old guy just showed up. What's he going to do? What's important? And I said, I3K. And they said, what do you mean? No PowerPoint charts? I said, no, I3K. You mean no big company trappings? I said, no, I3K. It's always the answer. So what's it really mean? What I look for are people who are intelligent. Now, by the way, that can be IQ. You mentioned EQ earlier in the program. Very important. IQ, EQ, or sometimes wisdom. Sometimes you get the trifecta, right? But you're looking for someone who brings something to the party in terms of intelligence, right? IQ, EQ, wisdom are all three. Intensity. You want people who are not clock watchers. You want people who are put themselves in a position where they can bring their A game, right? They're intense because they're doing what they want to be doing, or you'll help them find a way to get to one of those jobs where you can. That's intensity. Integrity is really important. We talk about values. If I'm talking to a group of people, I will say to them, guys, if you look at integrity on a scale of 1 to 10, we are not going to get along, and let me give you an early indicator that maybe this is not going to be a good place for you. Integrity is a yes or no discussion. And if you're ever in a discussion where you think you're close to the line, run away. Because no organization that I'm going to be part of is going to play loosey-goosey with integrity. The last one is kindness. And the organizations that I walk into generally are in pretty tough shape. But there's no excuse not to be kind. By the way, I can't tell you how many people that have been laid off in organizations. When I walk into an organization that's been poorly run, layoffs sometimes need to happen, right? I am a business individual. We're not running philanthropic organizations unless it's a nonprofit. We're working with companies that must make a profit, right? That's how you sustain the company. Right. But you can be very kind in terms of outplacement if it comes up. You can just be kind in your dealings with each other. And so I look for people who are capable of intelligence, intensity, integrity, and kindness. And I'll tell you what, Jay, that formula has worked, whether it's a startup, a mid-sized company, all the way to a Fortune 10. It's worked in every situation. Nonprofit, it just works because people are good to each other. They're hardworking. You can trust them, and they're taking care of each other. And that's what I look for.
You know, it goes against the grain a little bit, right? I mean, I think there's not anybody who would listen to what you just said in I3K and say, okay, intelligence makes sense. Okay, integrity, yeah, I get that. Okay, intensity, okay. But Rick, really, kindness in business?
Yep.
I mean, come on, Rick. I've been with you all the way through this, but really, kindness in a business world, how does that work?
Well, let's go back to the values that you and I talked earlier about what companies stand for. Most will use a term like teamwork, right? They'll say, we really value teams. Well, what does that mean? That means you want to get people together, right? The old version of company loyalty has long since gone. I mean, there was a time when I got out of business school where, people would aspire to start with a company and 45 years later retire from that company with a gold watch, right? Those days are long gone. The new loyalty is, while you are here at this company, we are going to treat you so well that you don't want to test the market. But if you do test the market, let's agree that we treated you well, you treated us well, and if we come back together again going forward, that's okay. But that has to be included in that new contract. Has got to be an element where I recognize that you are a whole human being. Guess what? If you've got to get out of here, flexible work structure for men and women, paternity leave, the policies that we can put in place in companies that I'm part of are critical to care for people in a kind, humanistic way, because if we're there to just churn and burn our people out, that's just not an organization that I'm going to be part of.
We're talking with Rick Miller, author of this book called Be Chief. It's a choice, not a title. And this book, I would love for people to understand that this book is just that I have in my hands here, because I still love holding on to books, is just filled with yellow highlight marks. Matter of fact, it may be argued that there's more highlighting marks than there are white pages in this book that I could go through. In this book, you have this. We talked a little bit about this. Your value, this compass that you have, where values are at the very heart of it, and then you have support and insight and discipline. But one of the pieces in there that I think is so crucial, and I think we overlook it, is the creativity aspect.
Yep.
Speak to, in terms of, as the compass works, why creativity is such an important part of our compass.
Well, just a belief is that the culmination, Jay, of all this exercise is how we create, how we have an impact. How do we manifest all that, understanding who we are and what we do? It comes out in our creativity. And as I shared earlier in a call, it's critical that we define creativity, I think, in a way that helps us. Creativity by some is viewed as an adjective, right? A person can be creative, a creative person. That means they're innovative. They come up with new ideas. That's a way of defining creativity, but that's not my definition. My definition of creativity is how do you manifest the future, your future, and the future of those around you. And I believe there are 5 ways that we manifest the future. We get in touch with our feelings. It actually starts with understanding this wonderful organism called our body and what our body is, what signals it's sending us as we feel. Our creativity is all about how we think. The creative process is about really our thinking, because that's the beginning of what comes out of our mouth when we speak, what comes out of our hand when we write or when we type, and then as we manifest the future in a very visible way in our actions. And the challenge, I think, is to, again, this is about power. When we align what we feel with what we think, with what we say, with what we write, with what we act, you are powerful. The most impactful people I've ever met, and we all talk about, the quickest way to lose credibility is to say one thing and do another, right? I mean, we talk about that all the time.
Sure.
Make sure that your words align with your actions. But I think it's much broader than that, because, understanding how you feel and how you think, well, we don't talk a lot about that. You choose your thoughts. People are often, when I work with senior executives all the time, I said, I'll give them a little diary, and I say, I want you to kind of monitor your thought patterns throughout the day, right? Are you aware of the cyclical nature of your thinking? Because everything that comes out of your mouth and the actions, they start with a thought. Yet if we're not aware of our thinking, then we're not aware that is really what is very early on in the creative process. So be aware. Can you catch – and here's the test, right? When you get into a negative thought pattern, and we all do. We're all human beings. Can you be aware of that negative thought pattern so that it lasts 5 minutes rather than 5 hours, right? When you're leaving a meeting, I work with senior executives all the time. When you leave a meeting and it didn't go well, just for the sake of argument, and you go into the next meeting, are you still thinking about the meeting that you just left? And how is that sub-optimizing your performance in the next meeting? Are you aware of your thoughts so that you can be present? And that's when we talk about manifesting the future and being our best selves. We have an opportunity at any moment to be aware of how we're feeling, thinking, speaking, writing, and acting, and make ourselves more powerful. And those are the choices and that we talk about in the book.
And Rick, I want to jump on that, because I use first of all, I am in so alignment with all this and so much agreement with this. I use the analogy of a professional hockey goaltender. I am fortunate enough that my wife and I are a corporate sponsor for the Carolina Hurricanes NHL team here in Raleigh.
Great. I'm coming down. I want tickets.
You got them. Just let me know. Let me know. Listen, you let me know. I will get the tickets for you. You'll sit right next to me, and so you'll have to sit with me at the ledge, but that's okay.
I'll buy the beer. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I'm up with it. Absolutely. Come on. But one of the things about professional hockey player goalies, and I've been fortunate to know a couple that have come through, a few of them that have come through our path here, is their ability to forget the choice that they have to make to forget the goal that just they let go and move on to the next one. And how hard, I ask, how hard is it to emotionally and not let that negativity get into you about I just let an easy one get by me, and not let that happen again.
Right.
And it really does come down to this choice of going, I have got to change my mindset. I have got to change what I'm thinking. I've got, for lack of we laugh about it here, but sometimes I've got stinking thinking, and I've got to change that thought process. And at the same time, your emotions, how this works. Your emotions get attached to your negative thinking. You're so angry coming out of a negative meeting that you've just had because they've thrown a whole bunch of changes at you that, you know what, sometimes, and I didn't say this, but this guy called Rick Miller wrote this in the book, you got to know when to let go.
Right. But let's talk about this, because this is really important. This gets to the compass. So if you're listening out there and you're thinking, okay, what Jay and Rick are advocating is that I do have, all of us have a certain amount of negative thinking. It's just being human. Okay. So if you're hearing us say, Jay and Rick are saying, I have to stop being negative and always be positive, that's not what we're saying. Okay,
No.
just to be clear.
No, we're not
You
saying
take
that.
the compass, right? The compass is all about making a slight adjustment. So if you would describe yourself as, sometimes, or maybe I'm negative, pick a number, 60% of the time, 50% of the time, whatever. We're just suggesting that being mindful of it, be a little less that way, just a little less, and see how it feels. So this is all about incremental change. So I don't for a minute believe that we can just go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. Maybe there'll be a car, electric car sometime that will do that. Right. But we have to make small changes. And I think the advocacy that I have and the confidence that I have in the compass is that it asks you to assess your current choices, and those choices where you are not happy, make a small change in one area for a short period of time and see how it feels. Because the one Jay's bringing up right now is huge. It's absolutely huge. And I've certainly gone from meeting to meeting. I mean, I've gone for days where I didn't do that well. I had a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm still sputtering about that 10 o'clock meeting. I mean, we're all human beings.
Yes, we are.
But just the awareness of what you can do. So maybe the next time I'm not carrying it till 4 o'clock. Maybe I'm carrying it till noontime. And then I'm carrying it till 11. And then maybe as soon as at some point, this is like everything else, give yourself a break. No one's asking you to be superhuman. But the choices that you can make, the small changes, can have a huge impact on your confidence and your power.
And it's the power we have to choose.
Amen.
That's the thing that comes out of this book, that it's such a great reminder. I am more powerful than I think I am, because I can make choices. I can choose that regardless of the circumstances I'm in, I can still choose, as you point out, I can still choose to be grateful.
Right.
Right. And I can still choose that, you know what, I should be grateful for the lessons I'm learning in this most difficult time of my life, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Right? I can make that choice. I can make the choice to say, okay, my job just got a little bit more difficult, but I can choose to look at this as an amazing challenge for me to see what I can really do.
Amen. And you can make the choice, Jay, just to do that a little more often. No one's asking you to make the choice all the time, right? That I always choose to be grateful. Nobody can do that.
Nobody can.
I mean, it's just not – nobody I know can do that.
No. It's
just make the choice to be a little more grateful, right? Yeah. And a little more generous and a little bit more accepting, or just one of the three of those. and so the book is got stories. It's got a compass. But the book, as you've seen, Jay, asks a lot of questions.
Oh my gosh!
That only the reader can answer. There are no you shoulds. There are no shoulds anywhere in the book, other than I do have an advocacy for you to consider I3K. I admit it. It's pretty simple, and it worked for me. It may not work for you. I mean, Colin Powell wrote a great book. It worked for me. And some of this stuff are lessons that have worked for me in all kinds of organizations, but they're only offered for your consideration, your audience's consideration. The key to the book are the questions that are asked.
I so agree.
And how would you answer those questions, and do you feel good about your answers?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I loved at the end of each little section. You made me ask, you asked those questions and you made me answer them. I know you didn't make me, but I felt challenged to answer them. And I loved that. And then of course at the end of the book, you walk us through, what do you really value? You've got the little test. By the way, the little test thing that he's got, and there's no right or wrong answers to it. You could get those at going to his website, to Rick Miller's website. It's called beingchief.com. Being, B-E-I-N-G, chief, C-H-I-E-F.com. If you go there, you can find the materials, and he's giving it away for free. By the way, you buy this book, every dollar that he's going to possibly make is actually going to children with disabilities, and it's an awesome book, Be Chief. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. I mean, I could go on with you because, do you know the one part I wanted to really get to was sometimes your strategy is not doing something.
Right.
And I want to talk about being still, about
Yeah.
the importance of being still. I want to do that too, but our hour together is almost gone, and it happens. This happens every time. I tell this to people who watch this show and listen to the show. I don't know. I can't speak for a listener, but from the guy who does this show, I feel like the show lasted 5 minutes. That's how it feels, because I could engage with you about different aspects of the book, and I know I jumped around because I'm trying to give people flavor for the practical application of this book and just how awesome it was for me. And to say, people can ask my wife, did Jay really shed tears? And she will tell you, yeah, the book broke him, and it broke him down, because I think I realized that I'll be honest, I'm being completely vulnerable. And Rick talked about that, of all things, that sometimes you have to be vulnerable. But, I'll be completely vulnerable with the audience. I grew up with a dad who didn't teach me much about business. He taught me a lot of other things, but didn't teach me much about business. And Rick's dad taught him a lot about dealing with people in business. And so he had that, and I didn't, and I was a little jealous, but I was also very hurt. And so Rick encouraged me through his book, practically, that I had a choice. I could choose to feel like a victim because of what I didn't get, or I could choose to change that and say I can learn everything that I can, because I'm grateful for this program that makes me read a book a week, interviewing these people, and know that all these people are taking the place of the lessons that I didn't learn from my dad. Yes, it happened later in life. I wish it had happened earlier, but it didn't. So I'm grateful it's happening now, because for some people it may not happen at all. But because Rick's book was sent to me by his publicist, and because I read it, which, by the way, you cannot get anything out of any book if you don't read it. Okay? And so I'm encouraging you. I don't care if you're retired. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you are working at a cash register. I don't care if you're working under a car. I don't care if you're the CEO of the largest corporation in the world, and thank you for listening. And I don't care if my friends in Merton, England, who, for whatever reason you listen to the show, I am so grateful for you listening to the show out there at Wimbledon, but I don't care who you are. This book is a life-changing book. And so, Rick, first of all, I want to say thank you, and just tell you how grateful I am to you for that, for the book, and for the inspiration and the motivation that you provided to me personally, and I know to my audience as well. Before I let you go, I ask every one of my guests, if you could give the people who listen to the show, my friends out there all over the world, because I have listeners now all over the world, if you could give them a new direction on your way out, what would that be?
Oh, that's a great one. I would say that be more you. I mean, New Year's, the number of lists that I'm reading of, this is what you need to do to be thinner and smarter and kinder and wealthier. I mean, it's all well-intentioned stuff. But you asked some key questions over the last hour about being still and being accepting and things like that. I mean, be more you. Take the time to learn more about the unique gift that you are, and then do the things that feed your soul, not somebody else's soul. Just be more you, and things are going to work out just fine.
I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Rick Miller, and author of this book, Be Chief. He's been brought to you, Be Chief. By the way, find out Amazon, find out your favorite bookstore. If they do not have Be Chief, okay, it's a choice, not a title. If they do not have it, you ask them, and you ask them, bring it, because I'm telling you, they can get it. If it's not on the shelf, they will get it for you, and they'll get it for you right away. I can promise you that they will do that, because I know the publicist and I know the distributor, so I know how that works. I know how this type of thing works. So if your local bookstore does not have it, you tell them to bring it out there, and get the book, because it's awesome, and you're not going to regret it. And Rick has been brought to us today by our awesome sponsor, Nline Business Brokers and Advisors. And selling a business is serious business. And so when it's time to sell your business, contact the professionals at Nline Business Brokers and Advisors. They are the real deal, team. Their trademark is really confidentiality. It really is. And so when you're ready to sell it, or even if you're looking to buy a business, contact the folks at nline.com. That's www.enlign.com. Rick, thank you again. Will you stay on with me a little bit as I close out the show? And
happy to, Jay.
Sure. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a show for today. And as I've already had somebody point out to me, they said, fantastic show. Thank you. Thanks, Sandy, for watching. Johnny, thank you. He said, great show. Appreciate it. He's all the way out in Seattle, Washington, so I appreciate that as well. So, folks, listen, Rick said it in his book, but you're going to have to read it. But you know what I say every week, and that is be inspired. Because when you're inspired, you can inspire someone else. And when you inspire someone else, they can inspire someone in turn. And that can make our world a most absolutely magnificent place. So be inspired. I will talk to you soon. Ciao, everybody.
When you lost your confidence and the answers don't make sense, you got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your time to fly. A new direction, a brand new day. A new direction, things are gonna change. You can find the strength to go a different way, yeah. The time has come. Your dreams will take you places you have never been before. Find your passion, find your strength.